Hi there. My name is Sigmund. We're making this tape so you will have a chance to learn how to play Texas Hold'em from the 1983 champion of the world, Tom McEvoy.
If I never see you again, you know it's gonna be too soon. You thought I couldn't make it without you, boy. Now you're singing a different tune. You thought that I'd come running back to you on bended knee. But look who's a-crying to who, big boy, and you'll find it ain't me. 'Cause I'm over you at last, and my worrying's in the past. I can't think of nothing else to say. 'Cause it's over, said and done, and it looks like I just won. Let's just go our own separate ways. All the years I spent loving you, it wasn't all a waste of time. 'Cause we had a lot of good times together, boy, till you started messing with my mind. But I can't take another chance, no, I can't stand the pain. And I'm not gonna sit by my window, boy, looking at the pouring rain. 'Cause I'm over you at last, and my worrying's in the past. I can't think of nothing else.
Hello, my name is Tom McEvoy. I am a professional poker player and have been for over 9 years now. I'm speaking to you from my home in Las Vegas, Nevada, where I'm surrounded by some of the many trophies I've won for my poker accomplishments, specifically wins in several major tournaments, including the World Series of Poker at Binion's Horseshoe, where I won the $10,000 buy-in no-limit hold'em event in 1983 and was crowned world champion that year. In addition to that, I've won 2 other major events at Binion's Horseshoe and numerous other smaller tournaments throughout my poker career. I'm very proud of these trophies and what they represent, especially the money. And in addition to the trophies, I've won a gold watch at the tournament last summer, and I've also been fortunate enough to win a nice car this past year, 1987 Ford Mustang convertible. So I have pretty well established that poker can be not only a lot of fun, but can be very rewarding in a financial sense. What I'm going to talk to you about today is the basics of Texas Hold'em, which happens to be my most favorite card game. It's where I've had the most success in my poker career. Poker tournaments, by the way, are quite a bit different. The style of play that you need to be successful in tournament play is quite a bit different than what you would need the techniques that you would need to be successful in side gameplay, or ring gameplay we call it. In fact, I wrote a book on the subject called How to Win at Poker Tournaments that explains some of the differences necessary to achieve success at tournament poker. But basically what this video is all about is not necessarily about tournament poker, but about the mechanics of Texas Hold'em and a few little brief strategical insights that can be used to help you do well in home games. Most of my play is in casinos in Las Vegas, as well as in northern Nevada, Lake Tahoe, Reno, as well as California, all of which have major poker tournaments and legalized poker. Poker is getting bigger and bigger all the time, and major sponsorship for some of these major tournaments is probably something that will occur in the very near future. So there's a lot of money to be made in poker, and it's a tremendously exciting way to spend a vacation. Las Vegas has been known as the playground, for America. Some people call it an adult Disneyland, and for poker players, it's the utopia. Las Vegas is the poker capital of the world. I love living out here. It's the most exciting way to spend vacation time. Las Vegas is noted for many small buy-in tournaments, affordable for everybody, all the way up to the major events, which I personally compete in. What I'm trying to say is poker is for everyone, and what I'm going to try to demonstrate tonight is some of the techniques that I use in defeating the poker games out here. So we're going to talk about mainly Texas Hold'em, and I'm going to give you examples of some of the common terminology that we use and demonstrate how the game is played. So if you will give me a moment to remove these trophies, I will get started. I also usually, when I'm competing out here in Nevada tournaments, I traditionally wear my black cowboy hat, my Stetson. I'm a Michigander, by the way. I'm not a native Las Vegan, but I like Western outfits and gear, and the black hat is kind of a trademark with me. And I wore a black Stetson very similar to what I'm wearing now when I won the World Championship 4 years ago at Binion's Horseshoe. I'm going to explain in brief the mechanics of Texas Hold'em so you'll get an idea of what I am referring to, and I'm going to use some of the terminology and then explain that terminology that's in common usage out here in Nevada and California. All right, Texas Hold'em is, in the casinos here in Nevada and California, is traditionally played with between 9 and 11 players, although it can be played with more players, it can be played with fewer players, but normally 11 is about the most you'll have, and most games are usually 9 or 10 handed. Now, Hold'em is played with a button. The button is similar to draw poker in that whoever has the button is the last to act. Just like the dealer, when you're playing draw poker, is the last to act. The same principle applies to Texas Hold'em. Whoever has the dealer button is the last to act for all 4 betting rounds in Hold'em. And Hold'em does have 4 betting rounds. The game starts like this. 2 cards are dealt face down. I'm not dealing like a Las Vegas dealer would deal. We'll demonstrate with about 8 hands here. 7, 8, 9. All right, 9 hands I have. 1, 2. All right. The first person in front of the dealer button has to put in a blind, usually a small blind. The second person to the left of the button puts in a bigger blind, usually 2 chips. There's a 1-chip blind and a 2-chip blind. And we're playing, in Las Vegas, most red chips have a $5 value. So we'll assume, for the purposes of this demonstration, that these are $5 chips like you'd play in a Las Vegas casino. And we're going to play a $10 and $20 limit game, and I'll explain what that means. The first, I said there's 4 betting rounds in Texas Hold'em. In a 10 and 20 structure, you go by $10 betting increments on the first 2 rounds of betting, and then the betting doubles on the last 2 rounds of betting to $20. So, going by $10 increments, the first betting round, which is when the first 2 cards are dealt, the first person to the left of the big blind has the option of calling the $10, 2 chips, or raising to make a total of $20. The person to the immediate left of this raiser, assuming this is a raiser, would have the option of passing, calling the 20, or raising again to 30. There's usually a bet and 4 raises allowed. So in other words, it could go as high as $50 on the first betting round. And the other players have the same option. When it gets around to the small blind, the person to the immediate left of the button, they have to make up the remaining bets and also have the option of raising if they wish, as does the big blind. So if it's been a raised pot, say there's been 1 raise and say a couple of callers, this person has the choice of calling $15 more, passing, or re-raising to make it a total of 30. If this person just calls, the big blind, that's the second person to the left of the button, also has the same option, calling the raise or re-raising himself. When all the first round betting is complete, we will now deal out 3 simultaneous community cards called the flop. In Hold'em, there is no memory work required whatsoever because unlike games such as 7-card stud where some of your opponent's cards are exposed and visible to you, all cards are dealt face down in Texas Hold'em, and the flop cards, which is 3 cards dealt face up simultaneously, placed in the center of the table, are community cards. Now in this particular flop, there's a king of hearts, king of clubs, 8 of clubs. That means that every person who saw the first round of betting, the pre-flop action, and is still involved in the pot, has a pair of kings. So these pair of kings help everyone equally. If one of these hands, these unseen hands, has a king in it, that means they have tripped up. They have 3 of a kind, 3 kings, which would be obviously a very strong hand, with this type of flop. So just to give you an example. Now I've dealt totally random. I don't know if there's a king involved or not. But the betting now begins with the first person to the left of the button. So all the remaining hands, people who called the first round bets and have seen the flop, now starting with the first person who is still involved in the pot, left of the button, is the first to act, and will be the first to act for all remaining betting rounds. This person has the option of betting or checking. If he checks, he has the later option of raising. Check raise is allowed out here. And again, there's usually 1 bet and 4 raises allowed, so he can bet or check. If he bets, then of course the betting goes in sequence. Again, the next person in order to the left of the first bettor has the option of passing, calling, or raising, just like on the first betting round, etc. Those remaining players who are still in the hand get to see a 4th card, which is another community card, which is now the Queen of Hearts. So that means there's 2 possible flush draws out there, both hearts and clubs. Now the betting doubles. Instead of $10 bets, it now goes to $20 bets. Again, same sequence of betting. All people that call the 4th Street action, and this is called 4th Street. These first 3 cards are called the flop. This card is called 4th Street. It's the 4th community card. And of course, it's the best possible hand using any or both or none of your 2 hole cards and the 5 community cards, because the 4th and final betting round occurs after this fifth and final community card is exposed. Now, this last card is a 6 of diamonds. Now that means without having 3 of the same suit out here on this flop, there's no possible flushes. And without having 3 cards in sequence, and there aren't, there's no possible straight. So the best possible hand would be 4 kings. The next best possible hand would be, if someone had a king and a queen in their hand, would have, you know, kings full of queens, and so on down the line. It's very important to be able to read what your hand is, what your best possible hand is, and what the best possible hand can be out against you. Now, we'll just turn these cards up and we will take a look at who made the best possible hand. Now, this first hand had a king in it, so it had 3 kings with a 10-8. You must use the best 5 cards to make out of the 7 to make the best 5 card hand. So this hand is a very strong hand, 3 kings with a queen 10. This hand has no pair, nothing at all. This hand is considered a very weak starting hand. 2 non-connecting offsuit cards. So he probably would not have called any pre-flop raise. This hand here, Jack 10 suited, is a playable hand, and most people will probably play that hand, although not necessarily for a raise. This hand on 4th Street picked up a straight draw. With the Jack 10 needed either an ace or a 9 to complete the straight. It did not make the straight. So the best hand is still this King 10. Now, the other hand here also had a king in it. And the best possible hand, this hand is 3 kings with a queen 9. That means that this hand here with a king 10 would have won the pot, because there's an expression, out-kicked, that is used quite frequently. And that's exactly what has happened here. This hand with 3 kings with a queen 10 has a higher side card or kicker than the hand that has 3 kings with a queen 9. So this hand would be superior to this hand, and this would be a losing hand, although this hand, if it had seen the flop, would have given plenty of action. In other words, they would have been betting or calling raises, because it's flopped 3 of a kind, which is a very strong hand. 3 of a kind, by the way, that is usually called trips or flopping a set. That's a common term that's used out here in Nevada and California, but it might not be a phrase that is used commonly in home games. This hand over here had an ace high, no pair. This hand had a pair of 4s, no help. This hand had a 5-3, no help. And this hand had ace 9, nothing. Now, to give you an example, I'm just going to run through this deck casually. I'm going to pull out 2 8s. If one of these hands had been a pair of 8s, it would have made a full house. There can never be a full house in Texas Hold'em without a pair on board, by the way. So that's just something to always bear in mind. No one can have a full house without a pair on board. Just as no one can have a flush unless there's 3 of the same suit, you know, among the 5 community cards. And no one can have a straight unless there's 3 connecting cards out there. Connecting cards would mean close to each other, the same rank. For example, King, Queen, Jack among the community cards would allow an ace and a 10 to make a straight, an ace high straight. Aces can be used both for high straights and low straights. In other words, ace, deuce, 3, 4, 5 is also a straight, as is ace, king, queen, jack, 10. So aces have that option just like they do in almost any other form of poker, to be used as both a high card and a low card for straights. So if there had been a pair of 8s in this particular example, they would have beaten both this hand and this hand, who flopped 3 kings, because they did not have a full house. They only had 3 kings with, you know, a side card. that did not fill or match in the board cards. So this hand would have been the winning hand if it had been out. Now, if the king here, for example, had one of the matching side cards, for example, a 6, although king 6, by the way, is not considered a very strong starting hand. Just pull a 6 out here to give you an example. If this hand had been a king 6, they would have made kings full of 6s, which would have defeated, 8s full of kings, obviously. So you must learn how to read these board cards and community cards. And remember, anytime there's a pair on board, the possibility of full house exists, but if no one has one of the matching cards to that pair helps everyone equally. I've just dealt out a typical Hold'em hand in a 9-handed game, and I'm going to go through all the betting techniques and so forth for the whole hand to the very end. Again, we're playing what we call a simulated 10-20 game. These red chips signify $5 each. The betting increments are $10 before the flop, which is the first 2 down cards. There's a betting round. And then $10 on the flop, and the 4th and 5th community cards will be $20 each. Now, the first person to the immediate left of the big blind, the button's right here now, is the first to act. This hand is a 10-7 offsuit. This is not considered a very strong starting hand, in particular an early position where the person that, if he played this hand, could be subjected to several raises. So it would normally be passed in this spot. So the 10-7 offsuit is passed. When a player passes, he tosses his cards towards the dealer, and that's an indication that he's resigned from this particular pot. So the dealer will keep them somewhere in front of him. The discarded cards are called the muck, or the dead cards. The next person to act has an ace-king suited. Now this is considered a very strong starting hand in Texas Hold'em, and the person who has this hand will traditionally enter the pot and bring it in for a raise. So this person will bring it in for a raise. So he's going to raise $10. He has to put in 10 to match the big blind and raise it 10 more to make a total of $20 in the pot at this point. The next person to act has Queen Jack suited. Now that is not nearly as strong as Ace King suited, but it is certainly considered a playable hand, and many players will play this even for a raise. We're going to, for the purpose of this demonstration, assume that this person calls the raise. They also must match the bet, put in 4 chips. Now this person with the Queen Jack of clubs has the option of re-raising, making it a total of 30, 6 chips. But most players will not put in that much action before the flop with this hand, because that's only a medium strength hand and not nearly as strong a starting hand as this Ace King suited. Now the person next to the Queen Jack of clubs in a 9-handed has a pair of 8s. Many people will play this pair in a raised pot. We're going to assume, again, for the purposes of our demonstration, this person will play this hand. He will also call 4 chips or $20. Person next to the pair of 8s has a 4-3 offsuit. Again, not considered a very strong hand. This person would normally pass. The hand next has an ace-queen offsuit. Two big face cards, especially an ace with a fairly strong side card, as is the queen, whether suited or unsuited, are considered usually a very playable hand. And this person, again, for the purposes of our demonstration, will enter the pot and call the bet, 4 chips. Last person to act, the button, has a very weak hand. Anytime there's a hand with 1 big card and 1 small card is not considered a playable starting hand, although occasionally people will make exceptions if they're suited. But people who play this game have a general tendency to overrate the value of suited cards. Suited cards only add between 5 and 7% to the value of your hand. So a big card and a little card, which are very difficult to make strong hands with unless you flop trips or 2 pair, and if you did flop 3 of a kind or a set, you could easily be out-kicked. For example, if two kings came on the flop, as did my previous example, you can see that any person who played a king with a card bigger than a deuce would have this hand beat. So it's not considered, even when you get a good flop to it, a very good starting hand. And normally a person with a hand like this would pass. The small blind has, again, a jack and a 3 offsuit. Not considered a very good starting hand. The same principle would apply. The small blind would relinquish their $5 to the pot and pass. The big blind has 2 suited connecting cards, a 7 and a 6. Anytime you have 2 cards, especially suited, it's quite possible this person could make straights or flushes with them. Although a flush, obviously, would be considered a far... it would not be a very strong flush, only a 7 high flush, and any 2 bigger cards of the same suit, for example 2 bigger spades, would have this person beat if 3 spades came among the 5 community cards. So as a general rule, when you have medium-sized or small suited connectors that you decide to play before the flop, what you're really hoping to make is a straight, where you can have what they call the nuts if you flop the best possible hand. For example, the best possible hand for any person that held a 7-6 would be a 3, a 4, and a 5 of different suits. So there would be no other possible flush combination, and the best possible hand would be a 7 high straight, which this person would hold. So the people that play these suited connectors are really more interested in flopping straights, which can become the best possible hand, or the nuts, as the best possible hand is called. The nuts, by the way, as we will soon see through this demonstration, will change rather drastically from card to card, and I will give you a good example of this. All right, this person in the big blind in a pot that already had a raiser and 3 other callers and is already in for $10 would probably call and see the flop. So again, for the purposes of our demonstration, we had a 9-handed game. 4 people passed before the flop. 5 people stayed in the pot to see the flop. Now in Las Vegas and in California, there is a dealer furnished by the card club or casino that is hosting the poker games. And traditionally, the dealer will, before the flop is turned out, will burn a card. He will also burn a card after the right before the 4th Street round of betting, and another burn card before the 5th Street round of betting. And I will demonstrate that as slowly as we go along. Now, the pre-flop action has already occurred. All the money is scooped into the pot. The button is here. That means this person with a 7-6 of spades is the first person to act in every betting round. All right. The dealer burns a card and turns 3 cards face up. These 3 cards are the 10 of diamonds, the 9 of clubs, and the 8 of diamonds. Now you can see what's happened here. Now I'll demonstrate again. The 7-6 of spades has flopped a straight. It's actually what they call the ignorant end of the straight. It's a small straight, because as we will soon demonstrate, there's a bigger straight out against this hand. The ace-king of diamonds has flopped 4 to a flush draw. A flush draw has an approximately 35% chance, or roughly 1 in 3 chance, of completing their hand to a flush using all 5 community cards with 2 cards to come. In other words, if you flop 4 to a suit on the flop, your 2 cards here, 2 up there, you have a 4 flush. And with 2 cards to come, you're going to complete that hand or make a flush approximately 1 time in 3. So the ace-king has flopped a flush draw. It's also what we call the nut flush draw, meaning the best possible flush draw, being ace-high. The queen-jack of clubs has flopped a straight. The best possible hand at this point on the flop is a queen-high straight with an 8, 9, 10 out there and only 2 of the same suits. The best possible hand, or the nuts at this point, is a queen-high straight. The pair of 8s has flopped a set of trips. Normally there isn't quite this much strength out on one flop. Quite frequently, Texas Hold'em is won by one single pair or two pair. But for the purposes of this demonstration, just to give you an idea of the texture of the hands that can be out, and it's not rare, by the way, or unusual for this type of situation to occur with several people either having strong draws, like case of a flush draw, or made hands, such as the straights, or flopping a set of trips. Quite often there are no straight draws or made hands out and at this point, and 3/8 could easily be, in the majority of times, the best possible hand at this point. The ace-queen, on the other hand, flopped nothing at all, except it has a chance to make a straight, an inside straight, we call it. That means it's not open on both ends, if a jack comes. Now, the 7-6, having flopped a straight, has the option of checking or betting. Now, some players that flop what they think is the best hand will check in order to raise in a later round. But for the purpose of our demonstration, we'll assume that the straight decides to bet. So they bet $10. The ace-king, who's flopped the nut flush draw, decides he wants to gamble with his hand. This is quite common. He decides he's going to put in a raise. He's raising what we call raising on the come. He has a come hand. He has a hand with a lot of strength, two overcards to the flop. Overcards mean two cards above the highest card on board, which is a 10, and 4 diamonds. And that's a strong come hand, and he's going to make this hand approximately 1 time in 3. And with the amount of money already in the pot, he's only a 2-to-1 underdog to make his hand, and if he makes it, it'll probably be the best hand, so he can easily gamble with this type of flop and put in a raise because he's getting more than 2-to-1 odds on the pot. So for the purpose of our demonstration, the ace-king will raise. Now, the queen-jack of clubs has got the best possible hand, the nuts at this point. We're going to assume it re-raises, puts in a total of $30, 6 red chips. The 3/8 is beginning to be suspicious. He realizes that there's a possible flush on board and also possible straights out against him. Quite frequently, the 3/8 would re-raise in the spot, but because of the texture of the flop and the danger of a straight being out and the possibility that the 3/8 is not the best hand in the flop, for the purpose of our demonstration, we'll assume the 3/8 calls the bet, calls $30. The ace-queen, of course, has to call $30 in the hopes of catching a jack and possibly making a straight. But that's too expensive to play, drawing to basically the 4 cards in the deck, one of which, by the way, as you can see, is already out, so he only has 3 cards to catch to make the straight. And one of those 3 cards would be the jack of diamonds, which could give someone a flush. So normally, for a triple bet after the flop, a player would not try to draw to an inside straight. So the ace-queen would pass at this point. Now, the 7-6 of spades, seeing all the action and realizing it's flopped a straight, but there's many possibilities out there, come hands like the ace-king or possibly even a bigger straight out, is getting a little nervous about his hand. But he thinks it still might be the best hand. So we're going to assume, for the purpose of our demonstration, this is quite likely the way it would happen in a typical Las Vegas game. We're going to assume this person with a small straight calls. Now, as you can see, this hand is what we call drawing dead. That means there's no 2 possible combinations of the 2 remaining cards that could give this hand the best hand. No matter what 2 cards came off the deck, this hand could not possibly have the best hand. So, unfortunately, it's difficult to know sometimes with certainty that you're drawing dead. But this hand, as you can clearly see, has no hope of winning whatsoever, but does not realize it at this time. So again, for the purpose of our demonstration, we're going to assume this hand calls. Now, remember what I said? The ace-king has approximately a 35% chance, or 1 in 3, of winning the hand, of making the flush, which he will assume would be the best hand, which it would be unless the board paired. He can easily put in a re-raise at this point on the come, because he's only a 2-to-1 underdog to make the hand, and he has more than 2-to-1 considering all the action and the money already in the pot and the action on the flop. So for the purpose of our demonstration, remember a bet and 3 raises are allowed. We'll assume he decides to re-raise. So he puts in the final raise before the flop. I'm running out of red chips here. So I'm going to use some blue chips. The blue chips will have no significance. I mean, no different monetary value. We're going to assume the blue chips have the same value as the red. So for the purpose of our demonstration, the ace-king has re-raised. The queen-jack of clubs can only call. Bet and 3 raises are allowed. The 3-8 calls. The 7-6 calls. Now the action on the flop is complete. We're ready to put out the 4th community card. Again, the dealer will burn. By the way, the object of the burn is to protect all the players in case the top card is flashed. Obviously, if the top card is accidentally flashed, if the dealer is careless in the way he holds the deck and so forth, it would be a tremendous advantage to anyone who saw that top card, knew what was coming. Therefore, as a protection to all the players, a card is always burned before each new betting round. Now, we've already burned the card. The 4th community card comes up. Aha! The plot thickens. A 5 of diamonds comes up. The ace-king has now completed his flush. Now the betting increments double. It's now 4 chips or $20 from the 4th card on. The 7-6 is now very, very nervous about his hand. He was scared before. Now the flush is hit. He will check. The ace-king gleefully has now made the nuts. The best possible hand is now an ace-high flush at this point. The ace-high flush bets 4 chips. Because of the multi-way action of the pot and the fact that the queen-jack of clubs no longer has the best possible hand, as you can see, the nuts or the best possible hand can change from card to card. He's afraid of the possibility of a flush being out there against him, but he still has the best possible straight. So if there are no flushes out, he still has the best hand. And he doesn't know for certain whether there's a flush out or not, but he suspects it. So we'll say he decides he's not going to put any more raises, but he feels his hand and the size of the pot indicates it's worth a call. He will call. The 3-8 is now afraid of both flushes, and he was already afraid of straights. Now the flush got there, he will also just call. Remember, if the board pairs, the 3-8 now makes a full house, which will beat the flush, and the straight is already beaten, as is this straight. Call. A good player in this spot, after taking the action and seeing the flush card hit, would pass. Sometimes weaker players will look at the size of the pot and decide, oh, what the heck, I still got a straight, it might be good, I'll call. A good player by now will have realized the strength of the hands against them has to indicate that this hand cannot possibly be any good now that the 5 is hit. And a player with any kind of skill or sophistication would realize that by now and pass. And we'll assume for the purpose of our demonstration, 7-6 passes. Now, the betting is completed, chips are raked in, and we're ready to turn up the 5th and final community card. Burn again, last card. 9 of hearts. Now, guess what has happened? The board has paired. The 3-8, his perseverance and patience, and the fact that 3 of a kind in the flop is still a very strong hand, even if there are possible straights and flushes out against them, and the size of the pot clearly indicated it was worth playing, was lucky enough to make the full house. The ace-king may be a little bit worried about a full house, but he still has the best possible flush, and he doesn't have to have an opponent with a full house, it certainly is probably worth a bet at this point. So even though there's the danger there, an aggressive player would normally bet 4 chips in this pot. Now, the Queen Jack clubs really can't beat anything. There's a possible flush on board. Now the board has paired to make a full house possible. Sometimes they'll give what they call a crying call, almost sure they're beat, but they think, well, the pot is so big, maybe it is the best hand. The pot is laying you a very large price. We'll say this gives what they call a crying call, puts in the 4 chips. Now guess what happens? The 3/8 has filled up. It's certainly worth a raise at this point. It's quite possible, mind you, that there could have been a bigger full houses against it, or even 4 of a kind. If a person, one of these players, had 2 9s in their hand, they could have made 4 9s, which would have been the nuts again, the real nuts, the ultimate nuts. But as you can see, for our demonstration purposes, there are no pair of 9s out, so 4 of a kind is not among the remaining hands. The next possible best hand would be if a player had 2 10s in their whole cards to make 10s full. Again, as you can see, no 10s are out. And then the next best possible hand after that would be this hand, 8s full. Now remember, very seldom in a situation like this do you have the ultimate nuts. Occasionally, if the board isn't paired and you have the ace high flush and there's 3 of your suit on the board, you'll have the nuts and it'll stay the nuts. But as you can see, the nuts can change from card to card quite rapidly in times. So this is actually the 3rd best possible hand. But that is easily strong enough to be worth a raise in this point. So, purpose of our demonstration, they raise. Total of the 8s raised make a total of $40, 8 chips. The ace king of diamonds is fearful of this. He knows that his flush could easily be beaten by a full house, but it's still a very strong hand, and it's not worth a re-raise, but the pot would certainly indicate it's worth a call. He would call. By this time, the Queen Jack has to realize it's absolutely hopeless. There's no possible way a straight could be any good in this spot with a pair on board and diamonds also a possibility. So sometimes I'll give a second crying call. Most players will finally realize that their head has been beaten in and they will pass at this point. Then there's the showdown. The person who got in the last bet or the last raise is traditionally the first to spread their cards. Remember, all these cards would have been face down like this until the showdown. He would have spread his 8s full. The ace king sometimes would show the hand that was beaten, but he doesn't have to. The losing hand doesn't have to be shown unless a player requests it. And then traditionally, the losing hand will say take it, he'll tap his hand like this, or say take it, or toss his 2 whole cards towards the discards or the muck. In order to protect the winning hand, if someone requests to see the losing hand, and only the last called bet is considered the losing hand that is allowed to be shown, which would be the ace king. In other words, the Queen Jack did not call the very last raise. The Queen Jack of clubs and discard, no one would be entitled to see that hand. But any other player in the game would be entitled to see the losing hand that paid the last bet off, or losing hands if there was more than one. The dealer would take the cards, touch them to the muck lightly, usually in a tapping motion, that indicates that the hand is dead. That means that if the player had overlooked his hand, for example, say he had a 9 and an 8 in his hand instead of an ace king, and had made 9s full of 8s, and had misread his hand and thought that the 8s full had beaten him, and he could not suddenly reclaim the pot. Once his hand has been discarded and he is conceded defeat, and the dealer touches the muck with the discards, if someone is asked to see it, he cannot now reconstruct his hand and say, wait a minute, I overlooked my hand, I had the winning hand. His hand is now dead. Now, any sophisticated player or intelligent player would be smart enough to double check their hole cards normally in a pot of this size if there was any question whatsoever. Now obviously the ace-king is not nearly as confusing with an ace-king in this spot as it would have been with a 9-8. I mean, I could see where a player would occasionally get confused with a 9-8, you know, if he's a little bit unfamiliar with the game and is, you know, basically a newer player to this game. So the ace-king loses, and the eight's full, cheerfully piles up all the chips. Sometimes he'll give a grin and say how lucky he was, or what a great player he was for having used the excellent judgment to make a full house in the last card. I took you through a few sample hands just to give you an idea of the mechanics of the game and some of the terminology used. This is just barely scratching the surface of this game, and future videos will go into much greater depth and and have much greater strategic significance. I would like to make right now, though, a few general suggestions to people before they start playing this game, which, by the way, is the most popular tournament game of all forms of poker that's played out here, and it's had widespread popularity over the last 10 years in particular, and it's played for the highest stakes of all games as well as low stakes games. But some of the things in general that I would like to discuss are, before you start playing this game, be totally familiar with the mechanics of the game, the betting sequence, the meaning of the blinds. Remember, the button moves around the table, so whoever had the button on one hand, and the very next hand, whoever had the small blind will now have the button. Whoever had the big blind will now have the small blind, and whoever had been to the immediate left of the big blind now has, in their turn, has the big blind. That means that it's totally fair. Everyone gets the button once, everyone gets the small blind once, and everyone gets the big blind once as we play each hand. So in other words, if it's a 9-handed game, once out of each 9 hands you'll have the button, once you'll have the small blind, once the big blind. So it's quite fair. Occasionally Hold'em is played with an ante, but traditionally in Las Vegas it's played with the 2 blinds and no ante. One thing I would again caution people before they start playing this game, make sure you know how to read the flop, and ace and 2 sixes. This hand is a queen 7. No possible flush, no pair, very weak hand, no possible draw. So, 4th card, 5th card. After 5 cards, this hand is extremely weak. It made nothing at all, queen high. Be sure you know what the best possible 5-card hand is using any or both of your hole cards and 3 or more of the community cards, so that you would know your best possible hand would be 2 sixes with an ace, a king, and a queen. Your side card, your 7, would have no significance whatsoever. It wouldn't even be played. It's usually you're in bad shape as far as winning the pot if you're forced to what we call play the board. In other words, if neither of your hole cards has any connection with the 5 community cards, and there's no obvious like 5 straight cards, for example, ace, king, queen, jack, 10 of mixed suits is on board, where the best possible hand would be an ace high straight, and your whole cards would have no significance then, because the board would have the best possible hand or the nut hand, and if you were still involved in the pot, you'd be called playing the board. With that exception, normally if you're playing the board, you're in trouble. That means neither of your hole cards has gained any improvement using the 5 community cards. So as a general rule, you almost never will be playing the board. You'll be, if your hand is that weak, you'll not be involved at the showdown unless you're bluffing. And that's another technique that is certainly a part of poker, bluffing. Unfortunately, in a limit poker, most hands have to be shown down. In other words, one bet, especially in a pot, as you can see, in a multi-way pot with a lot of action, a bluff on the end is almost never going to succeed when a pot reaches a certain size. So that means in limit hold'em in particular, almost every hand will have a showdown. That means a hand, one or more hands that will have called the final bet on the end. So as a general rule, try to avoid excessive bluffing in this game because you will get called. Again, these are just a few tips, and just the basics are covered this time. Future tapes will go into much greater depth and strategy. Hold'em is a game where position is very important. Certain hands that are not playable right in front of the big blind may become raising hands in the last two positions, the button or next to the button. So there's a tremendous amount of subtleties in this game. The mechanics, like I said again, are very simple to learn. The length of this video has enabled you to learn the mechanics of Texas Hold'em, but it's a game that may take a lifetime to master. Thank you. It is very important that people know how to read their hands in relation to community cards and determine what their best possible 5-card combination is and what beats what. In this example that I've laid out, this player right here has a king and a queen. The board shows a 10, a queen, a 6, and 2 5s. The best possible 5-card combination with this hand is 2 queens and 2 5s. In other words, queens and 5s with a king kicker. The 10 would not play, the 6 would not play. These remaining 3 cards would be the best possible 5-card hand. This hand, 2 queens and 5s with a king kicker, would defeat this hand, which is queens and 5s with a jack kicker. So the best possible 5-card hand here is 2 queens, 2 5s, a jack. Again, the 10 and 6 do not play. So this player with the king and the queen would have this hand outkicked with the king kicker and defeat this hand. However, the very same king-queen which defeated the queen-jack would lose to the ace-queen for the same reason. 2 queens, 2 5s, ace kicker beats king kicker. The 10 and the 6 would not come into play in these 2 hands. In conclusion, I would just like to mention we're planning a whole series of videos, approximately 1 a month, that will be done both by myself and my good colleague Barbara Gold. Barbara, by the way, is one of the top lady professionals in the world, has won several major tournaments herself, and she'll be discussing other forms of poker, such as 7-card stud, 7-card low, or Raz, as it's called. She'll be discussing women in poker. I'll be discussing, of course, more in-depth strategies and techniques for Texas Hold'em and eventually tournament strategy. Between Barbara and myself, there's a good possibility of other videos being available showing other players in action and featuring several of the major tournaments that are held annually in Las Vegas. Right now, poker is so big in Nevada and California that there's at least 1 major tournament a month now, culminating, of course, in Binion's World Series of Poker in May of each year. Thank you.
We're here at the world-famous Gamblers Book Club in Las Vegas. My name is Howard Schwartz. I'm the marketing director, research director, and I also walk the 3 stray dogs we have in the store. The Gamblers Book Club has been in Las Vegas for 24 years. We're the most specialized bookstore in the world, and I have in my hands a catalog which lists more than 1,000 books on gambling, and that's free to anybody who asks for one or writes for one. You can write to us, care of 630 South 11th Street. You say Gamblers Book Club, 630 South 11th Street, Las Vegas, Nevada 89101, or call our toll-free number anywhere in the United States, 1-800-634-6243. We're open 6 days a week from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Some of the world's greatest poker players come in here. We have every selection of books you'd ever want to find on poker. For the beginner, for the advanced player, including Doyle Brunson's Super System, one of the greatest books ever written, and that sells for $50. We sell more poker books than any other store in the world. And so if you want our free catalog, you call or write, or if you're in Las Vegas, stop in. We'd be glad to take you on a little tour of the store. You don't necessarily have to ask for me, Howard Schwartz, because the clerks are very knowledgeable. And if you're out there and you've got a book on poker, we'd like to hear about your poker book. We don't publish anymore, but we can tell you how to get published, and we're glad to carry your poker book in the store. So poker books are very difficult to find, new titles especially. So if you've got a good book on stud poker or Hold'em or Omaha or high-low split, we're glad to look at it.
Howard, I want to thank you very much. You've been a lot of help.
Well, thank you for the time you spent with us. This is typical of the selection of books we have in the store. Right now I'm standing in front of the poker book section, and the two books I'm holding in my hand are Hold'em Poker by David Sklansky and Hold'em Poker for Winners by Carl Anderson. These are two of the books specifically on the most popular game in Nevada right now, Hold'em Poker. Sklansky's book is actually the book about 10 years ago that made the game what it is today. Before this book, there were no rules. There was no structure to the game. But this remains one of the most popular books in the history of poker, especially in Nevada, for anybody who is interested in the game of poker. And as you can see here, we've got 60 different titles, and they're listed in alphabetical order by title. So if you're in the store, you can find these books rather quickly. Right now we've got some customers in the store asking a few questions, and always glad to help them at the counter with which particular book they might be ready for. On some occasions the poker player is not ready for an advanced book and we won't sell it to them. We'll advise them not to get it until they read the basics. It's like in college. Read the books that are basic first and work your way up to the more advanced material as you need it. It's sort of like the prerequisites. So, in effect, I'm a sort of a librarian, researcher, marketing director, and we help people any way we can in the store. And we can sell books to people on the telephone without them ever having been in the store. They'll trust our judgment. And then we've done that for 24 years. And the main catalog will have all these poker books listed, and you can order by toll-free number using a MasterCard or a Visa.
It is estimated that there are over 30 million active casino players, plus millions more who are avid sports fans betting on the games. Yes, America's favorite pastime is competitive gaming, and the rewards can be tremendous. One way to get the edge and beat the odds is by reading Gambling Times magazine. Now in its 11th year of publication, this monthly magazine shows its readers all the basics of craps, blackjack, roulette, baccarat, the poker slots, and sports handicapping. Gambling Times has a very special offer for new subscribers, including free casino chips and a preferred player card that will give you many complimentary benefits at gaming casinos everywhere. For free details of this special offer, send your name and address on a postcard to Video Offer Gambling Times, 1018 North Cole, Hollywood, California, 90038. Here's a bonus gift for those of you who play poker. This weekly newspaper is also published by Gambling Times, and it's chock full of interesting and revealing poker strategy. You'll also read about the millions of dollars in cash prizes awarded to contestants in the mini poker tournaments that go on throughout the year. Everything will be mailed to you postpaid. Just print your name and address on a postcard and mail it to Video Offer, Gambling Times, 1018 North Cole, Hollywood, California, 90038.
My name is Bob Thompson. I'm the tournament director here at the Las Vegas Hilton and at the Reno Hilton and a few other hotels, and I'm also involved with this newest magazine we have out now called Tournaments. The editor of the magazine is Pat Martin. He came up with the idea 2 or 3 years ago about going into not only poker tournaments but all different types of gaming tournaments. We will be the primary magazine dealing with tournament news. So if you're interested in subscribing to the magazine, here's the number to call. The tournament hotline number is 800. That's your toll-free number, 542-5566.